Hi, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to the Coaching Call podcast. On this podcast, we'll cover various types of coaching by trainers in sports, martial arts, fitness, and business. We'll discuss each coach's methods to getting the most out of their respective athletes or clients and how they attempt to change the platform in which they coach. Join us on a fun adventure as we discuss unique coaching styles. Coaching is a universal part of how we get others to get something done. Join your host, Rafael, and his guests on this unique journey in coaching.
Hi, I'm Sifu Rafael, and this is the Coaching Call podcast. If you enjoy this episode, please subscribe and leave a review. This episode was made possible by listeners like you. Good morning, Andra. Wow, I get to see you again. I saw you on Friday.
Good morning.
And here we are again. So happy to have you on.
It's awesome to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, so you said good morning. For some people, it may be evening, but...
Right. It's my morning. I'm in Denver, Colorado.
Right,
Yep.
Denver. Yep. And it is also my morning. I'm in New York. So let's get into it. I am so excited to have you on. We've had you on a couple of times, but today's special for me. I get to know you more. I get to ask you questions, personal questions, maybe. Don't answer any if they're too personal, right? Don't worry, I won't go there. But
thanks. I appreciate that. No, it's fine. I think to your point, when we were talking earlier, all these places that we've been influence who we are today and how we serve and work in the world, right?
That's exactly it. I think that every instance of our lives represents who we become as we travel through that space, if you will. Right? But let's go back to a space very not too long ago when you were a little girl. Before the age of 10, who influenced you and where were you born?
Sure. So I actually am a Colorado native. I was born here in Denver. My parents lived in Breckenridge, Colorado, little ski town. It was much smaller then, for a couple of years. And then my parents got divorced when I was very young, actually, when I was only 4. My sister, I have a younger sister who was just 2. And at the time then, it was a different time in divorce in terms of custody and, how a dad has a relationship with their kids. And so my mom had full custody of us. We went to Boulder and my dad was in Denver and we saw him often and he was very present in our lives, but it wasn't a half and half kind of custody arrangements that are typical now. So I grew up in Boulder, which, if I'm being honest, is an odd place to grow up. It's, it's just a different environment and it's a little bit less, there's a little bit less parental oversight, I think there. I think it was kind of the norm in that time and place to be a little bit more hands-off, if you will. And in my opinion, I don't think it was all that healthy of a place to grow up. That said, you gain lessons from everything. And, I think it was, it taught me a lot. And it taught me a lot also of the kind of parent that I wanted to be eventually. Of course, I was not aware I was learning those lessons then, but as I've thought back about it, that's something that I pulled out of it for sure. Ended up moving to Denver for high school. So there's a whole lot of, to live with my dad then. A lot of things I can pull out of there, but that's sort of the beginning, if you will.
When you talk about the not enough parent supervision, it means you were roaming.
Yes.
You do anything you wanted. What kid doesn't want that, right?
Yeah. You know what? I actually think they wanted at the time, but what I in my experience, kids actually really crave stability and consistency. and some boundaries that they can expect so that they're safe. And when those things aren't there, it's unpredictable. And that unpredictability can be scary for a kid. And even though they act like they want it, I don't believe that that's actually true.
Right. They want somebody there to tell them what's next, right?
Yeah, and then I'm going to protect you if things get complicated and
Right.
go south, right? When
Mhm.
things go wrong, you want somebody, you know that somebody's going to be there for you and to
Mhm.
protect you. And um, look, I had a lot of adversity and challenges. I had a lot of very difficult things growing up, and I don't mean to throw my parents under the bus for the choices that they made. I think we all do the best we can at the time, and I do believe that my mom in particular, just because she had primary custody, was doing the best that she could at that time. But I also don't
Mhm.
think that it was a great environment to grow up in, and I think it created a lot of uncertainty and stress in
Mhm.
my life and my sister's life that it just I don't think it had to be that way, and I
Right.
didn't want that to be replicated for my children.
Without a doubt. I'm number 10 of 12.
Oh my goodness.
So
Wow.
can you imagine my parents didn't even know I was gone for 3 days when I was 8 or 9?
You know, I kind of can imagine how that would happen when you have 12 kids in a home. That must have been a crazy environment, like in good ways, bad ways, and other ways, right?
Oh yeah. But for 3 days,
Wow. You were
I thought
gone
I
and
was
they
gonna get
didn't.
I thought I was gonna be in trouble. I just first day, nothing. Second day, nothing. I was hanging out with my friends. I slept at their house. I didn't even
Right.
tell anybody. There was no cell phones then or anything.
Right. Right.
And then when I come home the third day, I think I'm gonna get in such trouble. Nothing. I, I was not
They said,
missed.
"Oh, nice to see you, huh? Welcome back."
No, not even welcome back. I wasn't missed.
Oh my gosh.
So that was pretty interesting.
Yeah.
When you talked about you didn't know you were learning these lessons on how to be a better parent. You realize that this is not what I want from my children.
Yeah.
There's a lot of value in that. There's a lot of depth
Yeah.
in that because it makes you say the buck stops with me, right?
Right. That's
Yeah.
right. Yeah, you
Uh,
have to acknowledge that you you get to make different choices if that's what you choose.
mhm, mhm. Right.
It's not
Without a
just going
doubt.
to happen. You have to make it happen. You have to decide how you want to show up. You have to decide what you want for your kids. You have to um, make the effort. And even then, right? It's not always going to turn out like you intend or that you want. I mean, I thought I married the safest, most reliable and secure person.
Mm,
And in many ways that he is, but I would never ever have expected to go through my own divorce.
mm.
And yet here I am. And and I actually think it was one of the greatest blessings of my life now because it's brought me to doing the work that I was truly meant to do. Um,
Nice.
and it's taught me to be a stronger and more um, present version of myself for my kids and to change that relationship with them. And so I know it's crazy, but I wouldn't change it at all. I actually am really grateful for the crooked path that got me here.
Gotcha, gotcha. So during that time when you had little parent supervision, if you will, who were your influencers? Who would you say you looked up to, or who guided you a little bit?
That's such an interesting question. You know, I actually think one of the challenges for me was that I was a little bit without a compass at that
Mm.
time. And I think that I got too concerned about being part of a friend group, that was not the healthiest, right? And
Right.
so, like you said, there wasn't social media at the time, thankfully. That would have, you know, added layers of complexity to an already challenging situation that
Right.
our kids deal with these days, of course. But I don't feel like I had the direction that I wish for every kid growing up, whether that's their parents or another, strong adult in their lives. And um, now I work really hard with parents to help their kids find activities and connections that aren't just school, have other connections too, because
Mm.
that means that if something does go wrong at school, you have other friends who you can rely on. There are other friend groups, and I didn't really have that. So when things went wrong at school and I was being bullied, I had nowhere else to go. I had nothing else. And that was a really challenging time. It was very isolating. So I really believe that giving kids access to all kinds of different peer groups and adults, like you're saying, leaders in their lives that are reliable and,
Mm.
um, a good calming and supportive force is an amazing gift and really
Sure
important.
is. It sure is. Absolutely. When I started martial arts at the age of 10, my family had no idea.
Really,
I
they
was
didn't
tr-
even
I
know.
was I was training privately because one of my friend's father was a master, and he just took me under his wing for a little bit. But when you talk about having role models, sometimes role models show up when you least expect them. Did you ever have any show up for you at school?
Yeah. Yeah, I did, for sure. There were honestly, one of the role models that I always looked up to was my dad. I always felt like he was, and he is, thankfully, still very much in this role in my
Yes.
life. But he's extremely ethical, has a strong compass of right and wrong. I always can rely on him to listen and help me sort through a challenge to find the right direction. And even though I didn't live with him for, until high school, that change was important. It gave me a different perspective on growing up, and I had a stepbrother and a stepsister that then were in my life on a day to day basis. They were there, but not every day. And to that bigger family and how to manage those dynamics and how to be respectful of everybody and learn how to um, live in that kind of an environment. It was different. There were more rules. There were different expectations, and it was good for me. That was really good for me. And I would say that both my dad and my stepmom played that role of that very consistent, reliable, steady, supportive, honest, strong guideposts. And I'm very grateful for that. They still do.
Were you what was your first thought when you knew you were gonna go move with your dad? Did you expect that, or you were not sure what to expect?
So, Sifu, I was escaping um, the life that I had up in
Mm,
Boulder, and I actually was so desperate to leave that world that I left halfway through my freshman year of high school
mm,
to and started um, in the middle of the year in Denver at a brand new high school where I knew no one in a whole different environment. Um, and it was because that community was just too small. I had been bullied a lot. I had had a lot of secrets, if you will, that I thought were secret that came out. And it was a very difficult time. People really made it hard on me, and then I didn't know how to deal with that. And so, in order to recover and cope, I left. That's not necessarily the best strategy. But on the other hand, I think the 14-year-old inside me knew I had to leave and protected me actually by getting out of there. So I actually give myself credit where I used to think it was a little bit of a cop out, that you abandon ship, but that's not how I see it now. I actually see it as a really brave move to say, I'm going to go to a different place and start all over. As hard as that is, I'm going to leave the environment that I know. I'm going to, leave the home that I do know and start all over because I can, because it was that difficult. And rather than give in, I found a way out. And I am actually really proud of myself for having done that. And I've learned to find compassion for that young child, who did the best she could at that time with what she had, which was very complicated and challenging. And I started over, and it wasn't easy, to go to a new school at that age, right? And make friends and find a whole new life. But it taught me I can do difficult things.
Yeah.
And that's a lesson that I've taken, many, many times and applied over and over. And it's something that I do today with, clients all the time when they're in the midst of a really painful divorce. It's an exercise I actually really love doing because they feel like they can't recover. How am I going to get through this? How am I possibly going to come out the other side? And I love reminding them that I promise there was something really hard and painful you did in your life at some point. I don't know what it was, but I promise you did it. And you're sitting here, so you got through it. So what skills did you use to get through that? And how can we apply those here? Because I promise that we can dig into that bravery and that perseverance and that willingness to see it through and apply that so that you're going to come out on the other side of this divorce too. And so as crazy as it was and painful as it was one of my best lessons.
Andra, I got to tell you, you're reminding me of my little sister.
Oh, really?
Yeah, she's such a beautiful soul. She was going through such trouble when she was living with my mom because my parents got divorced after 36 years.
Oh my gosh.
And she was hanging out with the wrong people, doing the wrong things. Sometimes at 12, like doing really bad things. And one of my brothers said, you need to come move and live with me. And she left New York. And can I tell you, that was a life changer for her.
Yeah.
She has 5 beautiful kids. She's an incredible mom. She's very caring, very giving. And it's such a wonderful thing to see someone who could have gone really on a negative path to
And credit
transform
to
their
your
lives.
brother too for
Oh, yeah.
taking her, on and bringing her under his wing to say, I see this is going poorly. Let's change
Yeah.
it before it, we can't recover from it, right? I give him a lot of
Right.
credit too. That's amazing.
Yeah. It and the thing that you had an outlet that you could go to, because if
Yeah.
your dad was in the same household and he wasn't the person he was just like your mom. And I'm not putting your mom under the bus either, just so we know, right?
Right.
But people deal with things differently. That's what I'm
That's all.
saying,
Yep.
right? Nobody gets a child and says, wait, look at that. Here's the instructions. Oh, look at that. Oh, here's the instructions for how to raise this particular kid. No, those don't come with it.
That'd be
And for some
handy.
parents, oof, let me see. This one is for this child, and this one is for this child. No, that doesn't happen.
Oh no.
But not everybody knows how to deal the right way. they do the best they can, and you mentioned that.
Yeah.
And the fact that you had that outlet, that was a great thing for you, and you took advantage of it. What if you neglected to do so? And maybe you
Yeah.
didn't get bullied as much, or maybe you learned how to deal with it, but you may have gone a different path yourself, right?
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Mm.
Yeah.
So
I
there's
do
a blessing
believe
there.
oh, absolutely many. I mean, as complicated as they are, right? But they also don't show up in that moment. There's no way that I was looking at it as a blessing at that time in my life. And I think that's part of the challenge with gratitude and with looking for um, blessings. I didn't have the capacity to find the positives in that situation at the time, and I don't think I had just the age appropriate, the brain power even, right? Your brain's just not done developing at that age. You just don't know. But when you look back to be able to find them, that's where the gift can be, because now you do have, hopefully, the wherewithal to examine those patterns and that situation from a different perspective and say, what can I learn from this that I can now apply to my life, and so that I make changes. And if you're willing to do that, and it's hard, that's hard stuff. I mean,
Oh yeah.
it took me a long time
Oh
to
yeah,
find
for sure.
gratitude to be able to say I'm proud of that 14-year-old.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a long time when that 14-year-old was, being punished, right? And I
Right.
felt a lot of shame and a lot of embarrassment and sadness around it, and it still feels sad. It definitely
Mm.
still feels sad, but I also feel, I definitely feel more gratitude than anything else. So that's taken years and hard work. Shout out to the therapists out there, I'll tell you, because that's, without that work, I don't think I would have been able to transition through it successfully like I have.
Gotcha. So think about a person who is in an abusive relationship, and they move or they leave that abusive relationship and they go somewhere else, even a different state, and they get into another abusive relationship, and they go from one abusive relationship to another abusive relationship. What I'm getting at is, were you bullied in your new school?
It was different. No, not the same. I did have to figure out, one of the unfortunate lessons that I learned, and that actually I think has taken me so many years to undo, was to be a kind of a chameleon. So, after that experience in Boulder, in junior high, as it was called at the time, right, in middle school, in high school, I just was like, I'm not going to go through that again. I'm going to be whoever they want me to be, which is
Oh,
not a recipe for success.
right.
But that was my adaptation, excuse me, to how to cope through high school. And I have spent a lot of time undoing that. That is actually one of the biggest things that I have learned, is that,
Mhm.
that is not successful. That does not work. It doesn't help you be
Okay.
confident in your own self. It just doesn't get you where you want to be. I don't even have the right words for that. But it's taken me a long
People
time.
pleaser? People
Yes,
pleaser?
yes, in every way. Yes. As they say, a recovering people pleaser, right?
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
it. That's it.
yeah.
You,
So,
you and I
that was
both are recovering that way.
yeah, is that true? Oh my gosh.
Oh my God.
I think
Yeah.
so many of us are, honestly. And
Mhm.
and I, like anything else, the first thing is to say, "Oh my gosh, this is something I'm doing." Right? And to start seeing the pattern, start seeing that you're making that choice and that you could choose differently. And having the courage, giving yourself the courage to say, okay, I don't have to do it exactly this way. I don't have to repeat that pattern. I can try something new. What might happen if I try something new? And that's where that real bravery comes in, is when you start giving yourself permission to do something a little bit different, because you don't know what the results are going to be. You don't know how it's going to work out, but being willing to say, that wasn't working, so maybe this will work out better, right?
Correct.
Yeah, it's scary, but it's worth it for sure. And not easy. It's not like it's going to happen the first time. Everything's just going to work out. But you start realizing, like, oh, okay, the world's not going to fall apart if I actually say what I feel about this particular situation, or I don't go along with something that doesn't feel right to me, or I don't want to hang out with that group of people or whatever. I have the energy and the power and the strength in me, the confidence to make a different decision for myself, even if I have to build it up one little thing at a time.
Yeah, I love that. When you consider all the lessons that you're looking back on, because you were not, sometimes when you're in the storm, you don't necessarily see what's really going on, right?
Yeah.
So looking back, that had to be a lot of introspective for you, to look deeper inside of you to see what your actions um, gave you in the long run. When did you ever start doing
Yeah, I didn't start doing that until my 20s, maybe a little bit later even. I got married young. I got married when I was 25. And I'm very grateful to my ex-husband, and he was a real source of strength and that kind of consistency that I had been looking for. That I really relied on that for a long time. And in some ways that enabled me to being, oh, bless you.
Thank you.
It enabled me to do some of that work, um, you know, because I felt a little bit more secure. Um, on the other hand, I think that I looked at marriage as a way to get away from doing all that work. Now
Mm.
I'm in this and I'm safe and secure, and so I don't have to do it. And that's just doesn't work, obviously. So, you learn things in, as you've said, in strange ways. You don't always know what you're in when you're in it, but there was a lot of growth. I was married for 20 years, so I think the person who I was at 25 when I got married, I'm 45 when I got divorced, are very different.
One of the things that you said earlier was that getting divorced was a good thing. What do you mean?
Well, I certainly didn't see it that way at the time. So, so for people
Right.
out there who are hearing that and say, she's not realistic, don't think for one second when it was happening that I said, this is good. I did not say
It's the
that.
storm, right?
Yeah, that's the storm. That is hindsight. Even I would say that's a little bit of the process. You start to realize it.
Mhm.
There were days during that process when I realized I can speak up for myself. I can articulate what I want and what I need in ways that I hadn't given myself credit for through the process. So those were wins. And, for me, when I say that divorce was a good thing, that it was a blessing, there are specific things that I mean. One is that I'm living a much more fulfilling, happier, authentic life than I would have ever have imagined. And I didn't know that I wasn't, but going through this gave me the opportunity to go discover it. And that's not just with another person in my life, though I'm very blessed to have an amazing partner in my life, but that's not the only thing. It's about that I was able to discover who I really want to be in the world, the kind of parent, friend, the kind of professional. I changed my career and pivoted to helping people navigate this really challenging time because I realized that that is where my gift is and what I really can be doing. So for me, finding that different path, being the parent that I want to be, having this amazing relationship with my kids is my greatest gift. And I know that I got that in part by having the courage and the bravery to get through that marriage, the divorce, and create a really healthy relationship with my ex that I am very grateful for. He's an awesome dad. He's very attentive and loving to his kids. He's good to me. And we have a lot of respect for each other and the road that we shared for many, many years. He's been in my life as long as a lot of people. We met when we were 18. So so I'm very grateful for him and for that. And, I can count a lot of blessings actually that have come from my marriage and the divorce.
Mm. When I'm a little baffled sometimes when I hear people saying, we're staying married for the kids.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, oh my God, don't do that. The kids are
Yeah.
going to suffer more if you do that.
Yeah. I understand the
Staying
intention
married.
for sure.
Right.
People, they so mean well, and I completely understand that. What I advise people to think through what does that really mean? What are they actually seeing, right? Are they involved in conflict between their parents on a regular basis? Are they watching you at your best? Are they seeing you be a strong, healthy version of yourself? I do think that for my kids to see choose me, choose a healthy life, choose to pivot my career and grow it, to find somebody totally amazing is a gift that I give them, right? To see me in that capacity. And here's a question that I ask, people a lot is, would you want your child to be in this relationship? When you say that, would you want them to be in this relationship? Would you advise them to stay? And if the answer is yes, then that makes some sense. And if it's no, then why not? And let's think about that. And what kind of changes could you make? Now, you can't always just walk out that day. I get that. There are things that need to happen. But you can start setting the table for a different future if you choose to.
Mm. It's interesting because if the relationship is really sour, if you will, the kids are going to see that, and maybe their future relationships will be sporadic, not good, because they're seeing this example in front of them.
Right.
Maybe they start treating their partners a certain way because that's what's normal to them.
Right.
Because
Well, they model what they
parents,
see.
yeah, the parents don't realize that sometimes staying together, maybe even for financial conveniences, will still hurt the kids, right?
Yeah, and that's a reality. I mean, I don't want to downplay that.
No,
It is a
it's a huge
financial
reality.
reality that it will set you back in terms of, you have to divide a 401k if you have one in half, right? You're splitting investments. You're paying for two households instead of one. I mean, those are realities. And there are challenges that come with the process. And, weighing all of those things is part of it. So I'm not downplaying for people the impact. I'm just saying that there might be more options than they realize, and that it's still, if you're not in a place that is healthy, supportive, bringing out the best in you, helping you thrive, it might still be worth looking at if that works for you. And I also am, believe me, not pro-divorce. I think everybody should try. I mean, part of why I waited and waited to go through divorce, because I had to make sure that I had tried every single thing, right? I had tried enough. I didn't want it. I wanted to make it work. That wasn't where my head was when the whole thing started. But at the end, when I realized there wasn't another option, then it was time to pivot and say, okay, if this is going to happen, then I'm going to have to come through and be the best version of myself that I can be.
Yeah, yeah. It's very interesting. I didn't want to get divorced, and my ex didn't even want to try working at it. I had no idea why she wanted a divorce. She never told me, really. And so what ended up happening is I kept saying, hey, why don't we just go on a date? Why don't we just do no. But it's so I didn't want it. But guess what? I had to eventually say, okay, it is what it is, right?
Well, right.
You
I mean, you can't have a marriage with just half the equation. Yeah, right.
Right. Yeah, both people have to be in it for it to work. When you started your career, this is not something you were thinking about to become the person you are today. Tell me about your career. What business career did you get into? And then we'll get into what made you say, I'm done with that. This is my new chapter in my life.
So my background is in communications. I actually have an undergrad degree in psychology, which at the time I didn't think was all that useful. And look, now here I am. And I have a master's degree also in organizational dynamics. So my career path to this point had been more traditional business. I had a marketing and branding agency. I was a VP of communications for a nonprofit. And I work with a lot of education and healthcare companies around telling their story, getting their message out there. I really love the art of communication, and that's always been something that I love writing, that I've enjoyed, and it was sort of a natural path for me. But I also never really felt like it was my purpose, if you will, and I didn't quite know what that meant, but it just never felt like I was so completely all in the way that I feel now about the work that I'm doing. So I've always loved it, but it was more sort of from a distance. And this feels like it is part of who I am, and that it's so important in what I do. And I wake up thinking about things that I want to do. And, I have endless list of ideas, and I love feeling that way about the work that I'm doing now.
Beautiful. So it was after your divorce. How old were your children?
They were in high school. They were 14.
They were 14. And
Yeah.
yes, I know you told me earlier you have twins.
Yes. I have a boy and a girl.
And it's very interesting. And I know that your son, and thank you for sharing that with me, is a world-renowned magician. And
he would love that description, world-renowned. I'm not sure he's quite there yet, but we'll go with it.
He's there as of today. He's there. So the whole thing about magic is that it's an illusion, right? And it's a beautiful, beautiful thing. And the better the magician is, the more believable it becomes. And I'm sure because your son is traveling the world, he can make something disappear, trick somebody, all these kind of cool things. But magic doesn't play into marriage unless you do it right.
That's right. That's a good way to think of it. Yep.
So how can you make a relationship last with magic?
Oh my gosh. Well, I think that the first thing is to acknowledge that there is the magic is in the consistency and the effort and the communication. I mean, the truth is that this, the people ask a lot, right? What's the secret sauce? What's the secret sauce of a good marriage? Um, and to me, I believe the best thing you can do for a relationship, whether it's a marriage or a partnership in any form, right, is communication and a willingness to actively listen to what's happening, be aware, right? Just stay tuned in. I think that it's so easy to get into a rut with a habit of how you interact with someone, the things that you do, to start letting little things bother you. But the work at it is where the success comes in. The partnership that I have now has been 9 years, 8 years. And I think we talk about the fact that we probably wouldn't have been good together as our first relationship. Everything that we learned
Right.
in our prior in our marriages helped us today to be the partners that we are. We realize some of the mistakes that we
Mm.
made. Sometimes you just have to
Right,
go
right,
through
right.
that to figure it out, right? You just don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah. Right.
But I'm very grateful that part of what makes us work is that we are both committed to doing that work, to paying attention, not to staying eyes open, not letting it just slip into some kind of a routine, but really being attentive to each other. And I'm very, very appreciative that that is our commitment, and that and I notice it. I mean, it just makes a big difference, right? I didn't know what I didn't know in my marriage. I
Mm.
was absolutely, guilty of letting some of those things happen.
Yeah, yeah. I've seen couples where one puts the other one down in front of
Mm.
other people. And I'm like, oh my God, please don't do that. But then I've seen, here's an example, my sister, married 52 years. And sometimes I feel like they should get a room. Like, oh my goodness, they're like teenagers in love. It's so beautiful. Yet I'm like, oh my God, I can't watch them anymore because it's so funny. But
We should ask her the secret sauce. That's awesome.
oh my God, they both have the secret sauce. It's about caring for each other, thinking about what would you like? How can I help? How can I do this? And it's about uh, engaging in things that they want to do together, right?
Mm.
It's having their own ideas and habits of what they or hobbies, not have well, everybody has a habit, but hobbies, right? But then sharing in those. And maybe they don't want to do certain things. They're like, you know what? That's your thing. You go do it. But
Yeah.
then, hey, do this together
Right.
so that they still have that together time, yet giving each other the space to breathe,
Yeah. A
to
balance
have
is a tough thing to find. That's
oh,
amazing.
yeah. Yeah, yeah. They're just incredible, you know. Um, I feel like they're the most incredible couple I've ever seen. And
Mm.
not just because she's my sister and I love her to death, but if through all the things that have happened, I've seen how the love has never been shaken.
Mm.
That's such a beautiful thing to
It
see.
really is. I love hearing that. And,
Yeah.
I do believe that a meaningful, joyful life is out there for everybody. It may look
Mm,
different for you than it does for your sister, or,
right,
for me or you or anybody else, right? But
right, right.
I do really believe that when people decide I want to be the best version of myself, that's where the work has to be first before they
Mm,
go into any kind of partnership. I think one of the biggest mistakes I see with people post divorce is that they want to fill that hole. They're really so sad that they just want to fill it with companionship. Um,
mm,
and they don't necessarily change. Like, they don't really examine, okay, what didn't work about the past person so that I can find something different, right? And doing that is so important because that's where the shift happens. You have to really look carefully at what kind of a person do I want in my life, and what qualities are important to me. Someone gave me this awesome tip to make a list of qualities when I started dating again of the person that you want in your life. She said, make a list of 100. That's a lot. I don't think I ever got to 100, but not just, the basic things, right? The, physical attributes or whatever, like what attracts you, but little things that, someone who likes to cook or go on adventures or loves dogs or, wants to sleep with the windows open, wants to be in the mountains. There are the things that you end up finding meaning in down the road. And when you identify those, when you make that list and then you're looking for that, it makes your choice easier too, as you're, out there in the world. Does that person meet, the qualities that I want? Okay, well, it's not saying you shouldn't have any kind of a connection with them if they don't, but it does help you make decisions, right? So you can decide, maybe they're a great friend, maybe they're perfect for somebody else I know. Maybe it's just a couple dates, but it's not the person, it gives you more choices. And I really encourage people to give themselves permission to learn about themselves first and figure out what, they're really looking for and what they love about themselves and work on that before trying to fill a hole, because that will serve you long term much better.
Mm. I love that advice that your friend gave you. 100. That's a lot.
Yeah, it is a lot. I really don't think I got to 100, but I will tell you that my list is, very accurate for the person that's in my life now.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Do you know if they made a list?
I don't think he did, actually. I've asked him that. I've asked him that, and I don't think he did. No, I don't think he had as good as an advisor,
Well, you just brought all the right stuff, young lady.
No, that's it. Yeah.
So, how long after your divorce did you realize that you had a calling to help others?
It was really within a couple of, well, it was about 3 or 4 years after. I started
Mm,
helping other friends who were going through it sort of informally. And that's actually what brought me to doing this as a career path, because one of my dearest friends, who is an incredible, accomplished woman who is, an amazing person and accomplished professionally, personally. And here she was, brought to her knees by this process.
oh,
And
mm,
that it really made me realize that if people like her and so many others I know can be brought down by divorce, that it's one of the few things that does that in our lives. Everybody needs support. And if it was causing her to be in the, puddle on the floor the same way that I was and other people I know, then we all need to help each other build back up after that. And she said to me at one point when I was just having conversation with her, I don't know how people do this without you. And I went, oh, I could actually really
mm.
do this. Like, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And so I really pivoted to go get my certification to be a certified divorce coach. And then I also did my mediation training. So I'm a trained mediator, and I've completed the collaborative training here in Colorado, also collaborative training through our bar association. So there's a few levels, and I've done that. And I really have just immersed myself in this process of understanding how to provide the best possible emotional support, and to do it together with the attorneys, with the financial team, so that a person has a really comprehensive support package around them when they need it.
Yeah, that's incredible. You said when your friend was, I guess, on the floor. It's a statement. It's a visual that I got. She's crying on the floor. You were crying on the floor. And I want people to understand that it's not just women who may go through this
That is so
emotional
true.
turmoil.
Yes.
It could be men crying on the floor.
It often is. And actually, a decent percentage, maybe it's not 50, but I would say it's between 30 and 40% of my clients are men. And I love working with these men who self-select into asking for support, who say, I want to do what's best for my kids and my family. They want to take care of their family, and they are looking for the best way to do that. And they're hurting the same way the women are hurting. They're struggling with the situation. Many, like you, didn't choose it, but here they are, and they are asking for support in navigating a path to get them through to the other side in a way that they can feel good about. And you are very right. And I love that you brought that up. This is not just women who go through this. Men do too, and they deserve the same level of support. And in some ways, it's harder for men to ask for support in our society. So I really like to offer that this is a normal, expected challenge to get support during divorce, and they deserve that support the same way the women do, for sure.
Oh yeah, it's very interesting when divorce is because of cheating. It's because that bond was truly broken. I can understand divorce because maybe we don't see eye to eye anymore, all these different things. But when it turns around to be cheating, I mean, that trust is gone, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Although, I do know people who are able to heal from it. And there's a wonderful, you might know who Esther Perel is. She's an amazing therapist and psychologist who talks about, she wrote a book called Mating in Captivity, and talks about a lot of infidelity challenges. And one of the things she says for people who do want to work on their marriage after that happens is you have to look at your first marriage as complete. Are you willing to build a second one? Okay, that first one is now over. Are you willing to put in the work and the effort to rebuild and create something new? And that takes obviously both people willing to commit to that and figure out what broke and how do we rebuild it. And I think that's so powerful. I know people who've been on both sides of that, right? Who have ended it after, who have decided to stay together after. I don't think there's one rule. I think it's
Correct.
more just being open to what works for you. And, one thing I'll throw in there is if your listeners are in a situation where someone they know is asking for their advice in that scenario, try not to bring your own baggage to it, your own history to it, because it can be really hard for people to hear like, oh, my wife knows, my husband knows, if she did that, if he did that, I'd throw all their stuff on the lawn, I'd key the car, they'd be living, in the street, whatever strong and statements that you make may not be helpful to that person in that moment, because they may make a different choice. And you want to preserve the relationship so that you guys can circle back afterwards. So try to support the person and not share your judgment necessarily about what they should or shouldn't do. And that's a really hard thing. Sometimes we're just trying to show loyalty to our friends by saying like, oh my gosh, I want to strangle him. I want to strangle her. I can't believe you're in that situation. And that loyalty is probably really felt and feels good. But offer support without trying to, take those actions that end up alienating your friend, because I've seen that happen a lot too.
Yeah. No judgment, right?
It's hard, but it can serve you really well to just be that steady, um, source of support and love and, warmth, rather than what would I do in this
Mm.
situation?
It's also being keen to the listening to what your friend really needs, because maybe
Yes,
they didn't need you to come and go, oh, well, let's kill him.
that's right.
Maybe they just wanted to tell you and have you just listen.
Yeah,
But a lot of times as human beings, we react instead
right.
of listening, right?
Yeah,
So,
it's very normal. It's very true.
yeah,
Yeah,
listening is a earned skill. I called it earned because you have to earn the right to be there, right? So
it's
that you
true.
can listen, right? When you consider what you've turned your life around from a situation that you went through to situations that your friends were going through, and you said, wait a minute, I can change other people's lives. I can help them navigate so they have more happiness in their life, more joy. What did that do for you?
Well, that's the best gift, right? I mean, the truth is that that's where the gold is, right there, because I have filled myself up in a way that allows me to help bring that to other people. And I do believe that if I'm not my own life isn't um, complete with the things that I want. And I hesitated when I used the word complete, because I actually don't think anybody's ever totally complete. But if if
Hopefully not.
if you're not, yeah, exactly. If you're not working toward that, right? If I'm not on the path that feels right to me, is a better way to say it. If I'm not on that path, then I can't bring it to somebody else. So what it's really brought to me is the ability to give it to other people. I mean, I think that's truly what it is that I've learned to forgive myself for the um, things that haunted me for many years. And
Mm,
that's ongoing, obviously, but I try really, really hard to stay in that place and to focus on serving the world with this, and that I know that this is something I offer. And so it really brings me, people ask me, oh, you're in divorce all the time, isn't that exhausting, isn't it overwhelming? And you know, it's just not how I see it, honestly. I'm so inspired by these clients, by these people who are working so hard to do what's right for themselves and their kids and their families. So I find so much inspiration there, and that feeds me. And then I hope to be able to give that back to the world.
mm. Would you rather be in a place where people sought your advice, maybe even before they got married?
um, you know, I think I have a little bit to offer there, but I also know that that's not my
That's not the
area of
norm,
focus right now.
right?
And I don't know that everybody wants that. If someone came to me and asked, I'd be happy to share if that's what they were looking for, but I don't feel any need to push that out there. I What I wish for everybody truly is to take the time to learn to understand yourself and
Mm,
to love yourself before you go into any relationship, marriage, partnership, otherwise, so that you can make good, healthy decisions. And that, I think, is something everybody can benefit from, right? There's a lot of, desire to just sort of what we were talking about before, fill those holes, with things. And
mm,
if we take the time to fill that with support, with love for ourselves, and with the energy to learn about ourselves and how we're doing our best, and what we need. That can be a game changer in all senses, personally and professionally too. How are you going to make your best mark on this world?
Yeah.
And that is worth the time and effort.
Absolutely, absolutely. I love what you're doing. Please don't stop. But I'd love to give you 30, 45 seconds and your website is going across the screen, what people can expect when they reach out to you.
Sure. So I have a couple different levels of coaching available. I do have private coaching. And then I also have a digital course. So this is created for people who either can't afford or don't want or whatever, a coach, a one-on-one relationship, but it has the same tools that I use with my clients via a digital course. So you can access that from home anytime. It's very affordable. And I have an option for 2 coaching sessions if you just want a little kickstart with the course. I have a lot of free resources on my website and very low cost resources like guides to some of the difficult conversations, talking to kids, telling your spouse you want a divorce, dealing with, your family and friends who are sort of trying to push you to go one direction or another. And all of that is available. And, part of my role, I believe, is to offer resources. So to the extent that I can be of help, please check that out and use what's there. I hope to be able to help people navigate this really difficult time and know that they can come out better on the other side.
Yeah. Plus, I love the name of your website, Better and Before. Love it. Andrea, I got to tell you, every time we get to share some time together, I am blessed to get to know you. Today, I got to know you a tiny little bit more. We got to continue this conversation, my dear.
Well,
So,
thank you for sharing this kind of light with people. I'm glad to be in your orbit here. Thank you.
thank you. Have yourself an amazing and blessed day. Everybody else, do me a favor. Share this episode. Why? Because you never know who may be going through it. And this is a great episode to help them out and then also to reach out to Andrea. Everybody, God bless.